Brianna Cole crouched beneath a four-poster bed in her wedding dress, ready to surprise her husband until she heard him confess he was planning to kill her. 6 months of marriage, then a tragic accident, then freedom and a fortune. But what she didn't know yet was that the woman who'd hated her from day one would be the one to save her life. If this story already has you hooked, drop "I'm ready" in the comments right now. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive, and trust me, you need to hear every word of what happens next. Brianna adjusted her veil in the bridal suite mirror, watching crystal light dance across the antique furniture. The reflection staring back looked like something from a magazine, her grandmother's pearls glowing against her brown skin, custom Charleston lace cascading down her body in perfect waves. She'd spent 28 years as a pediatric nurse in North Charleston, living modestly, dreaming small. Now she stood in a plantation venue with Spanish moss draping the windows and Southern elegance wrapping around her like a promise. 12 months ago, she'd been working a double shift when Marcus Whitmore walked into the charity gala at the hospital. Old money, new smile. Eyes that locked onto hers across a crowded room. 3 months later, he proposed on a yacht. 6 months after that, Paris weekends and promises of forever. The fairy tale she'd stopped believing in suddenly felt real. She turned from the mirror, smoothing her dress, trying to calm the butterflies. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. The ceremony had gone beautifully, mostly. She'd caught Patricia's cold stare during the vows, Marcus's mother watching her like something distasteful had invaded the family line. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight belonged to Joy. Marcus had excused himself right after the ceremony, claiming he needed to check on something with the caterer. An hour had passed. Brianna glanced at her phone, grinning as a playful idea took shape. She'd surprise him when he returned, hide under the bed, jump out when he least expected it, break the tension with laughter, start their marriage with lightness instead of her anxious overthinking. She kicked off her heels, careful not to snag the dress. The weight of the gown made movement awkward, but she managed to slide beneath the four-poster bed, stifling giggles. Dust particles floated in the sliver of light cutting across Persian carpet. She pressed her cheek against the texture, feeling ridiculous and giddy all at once. Her heart raced with anticipation. Any second now, he'd walk through that door. Then she heard the door opening. 2 male voices entered, neither one expecting an audience. Have you ever ignored red flags because the dream seemed too perfect? Drop a comment if you've been there. Some secrets are whispered in darkness because they're too monstrous for daylight, and Brianna was about to hear every single one. Marcus's voice floated through the room, followed by another man's deeper, familiar, Devon, Marcus's childhood friend, the one who'd stood beside him during the ceremony. Ice clinked against glass. Footsteps crossed hardwood floors. So you're really going through with it? Devon asked. Brianna smiled beneath the bed. Going through with what? The honeymoon? Some business deal Marcus had mentioned? Of course I'm going through with it. Marcus's tone carried an edge she'd never heard before. Cold, calculated. Did you think I'd get this far and back out now? Her smile faltered. Something felt wrong. The casual intimacy in Devon's question, the tension crackling through Marcus's response. This wasn't normal conversation. The trust fund requirement is no joke, Marcus continued. Marriage before 35, minimum 6 months duration. My father made damn sure I couldn't access a cent without jumping through his hoops. Brianna's fingers tightened against the bed frame, white knuckles in the darkness. She'd known about Marcus's family money, but he'd never mentioned conditions, never mentioned requirements. Devon's shoes appeared in her line of sight, expensive leather reflecting moonlight through the shutters. Why her, though? You could have chosen anyone. The pause stretched too long. When Marcus finally answered, his voice carried something that made her stomach drop. Someone like Brianna would never suspect. She's so grateful, so in love, so desperate to believe in fairy tales. He laughed, a sound she'd kissed goodnight 100 times, now transformed into something unrecognizable. A pediatric nurse from North Charleston who thinks she hit the lottery? Perfect. Tears soaked into the carpet beneath her cheek. Perfect for what? Her mind raced, denial battling comprehension. This couldn't be her husband. Not the man who'd held her hand through her grandmother's funeral. Not the man who'd whispered promises against her skin. Playing house with that girl has been exhausting, Marcus said. But 6 months passes quickly enough. 6 months. The words hit like physical blows. 6 months of what? Their marriage had barely begun. Devon moved toward the window. Shadows shifted across the floor. And the insurance policy on her? You're sure about that? When was the last time someone's words shattered your entire reality? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Under the bed, Brianna stopped breathing. She married a man who promised forever until she heard him planning her death with the same tone he'd used to order their wedding cake. $2 million. Marcus's response came smooth, practiced. Tragic accident after 6 months of marriage. My grieving period. The sympathy from the family. Inheriting everything without splitting assets. It's cleaner than divorce. The room tilted. Brianna bit down on her hand to keep from screaming, tasting copper as teeth broke skin. Cleaner than divorce. He was discussing her death like a business transaction. Like choosing between vendors. Like deciding on appetizers. The optics worked perfectly, Marcus continued, ice clinking as he drank. Progressive son marries outside his social circle. Loves conquers all. Then tragedy strikes. I'm the heartbroken widower. Mother gets her sympathy points for accepting the marriage. Board approves the development deals I need in Atlanta and Charlotte because I'm this grieving romantic hero. Devon laughed. Actually laughed. You've thought of everything. I've had months to plan. Months. While she'd been falling deeper in love, planning their future, imagining children with his eyes and her smile, he'd been calculating her murder. Every kiss had been lies. Every promise, strategy. Every moment of tenderness, performance. Brianna's nursing training kicked in beneath the paralysis. Assess, plan, act. Her phone sat in her purse across the room. The door stood 15 feet away. 2 men blocked her path. Her dress weighed 20 pounds and made noise with every movement. Moonlight streamed through plantation shutters, illuminating everything. She was trapped. When? Devon asked. I'm thinking a fall. Something at home. Stairs. Maybe a balcony. Quick investigation. Tragic accident. Insurance payout within months. Marcus's shadow moved across the floor. The trick is making sure it looks completely natural. Rage. Built beneath Brianna's terror. Hot, clarifying rage. This man had stood in front of their families, their friends, God himself, and lied. He'd touched her with hands planning violence. He'd whispered love with lips forming murder. Her makeup ran, mascara pooling beneath her eyes. The wedding dress that had felt like a dream now twisted around her like a burial shroud. She'd walked down an aisle toward this. She'd said yes to this. She'd trusted this. Silence fell as they finished their drinks. Footsteps moved toward the bed. What would you do in this moment? Run, fight, or wait? Your answer might surprise you. Comment below. Just as Marcus's shadow fell across the bed, just as Brianna braced herself to be found, the door exploded open, and a voice she'd learned to dread cut through the room. Marcus Whitmore, you will do no such thing. The woman who'd called their love complicated and their marriage unfortunate became the only thing standing between Brianna and a carefully planned murder. Patricia Whitmore stood in the doorway, still wearing her mother-of-the-groom champagne gown, pearls clutched like weapons, her face twisted with fury, not at Brianna, but at her son. I heard every word from the hallway, Patricia said, voice shaking. Every single word. Marcus froze. Mother, don't mother me. She stepped inside, slamming the door behind her. Insurance fraud? Murder? Are you out of your mind? Beneath the bed, Brianna's heart hammered against her ribs. Patricia had heard. The woman who'd made her feel unwelcome at every family dinner, who'd questioned Marcus's choice at every turn, who'd looked at her with thinly veiled disapproval for months. She'd heard everything. Devon backed toward the window, panic replacing his earlier confidence. Mrs. Whitmore, we were just talking. Talking about killing his wife. Patricia's voice cracked. That girl may not have been my choice for Marcus, but I will not be party to murder. Marcus moved toward his mother, hands raised in placation. "You're overreacting. We weren't serious. You discussed insurance policies, timing, methods." Patricia's face flushed crimson. "I may disapprove of this marriage, Marcus. I may think you rushed into something foolish. But there's a difference between wanting a divorce and plotting murder. There's a difference between protecting our family name and destroying it completely." The suite transformed around them, romantic honeymoon setting becoming crime scene, antique furniture cast dramatic shadows. Three people argued while Brianna lay frozen beneath silk and lace, processing the impossible reality. Patricia Whitmore, who'd never shown her warmth, who'd questioned her background and her intentions, was defending her life. "Think about the scandal," Patricia continued. "Think about what this would do to our family, to our name. Your father built this legacy on integrity. Father built this legacy on deals and compromise." Marcus shot back, mask fully shattered, spoiled, desperate, dangerous. "And his ridiculous trust fund conditions are why I'm in this mess." "You're in this mess because you're greedy and cruel." Patricia's voice dropped to something icy. "I will not let you destroy everything we've built. I will not let you turn our family into murderers." Devon edged toward the door. "I should go." "You'll stay right there," Patricia commanded. "You're a witness to this conversation, and if anything happens to that girl, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you heard tonight." Have you ever been saved by someone you thought was your enemy? Share your story. Sometimes angels have unexpected faces. While three people fought above her, Brianna saw her chance. She rolled out from the opposite side of the bed, grabbed her purse, and ran her torn wedding dress trailing behind her like a ghost fleeing its own funeral. She ran down a servant's staircase in a plantation house, a modern woman fleeing a modern nightmare through paths built for those who'd escaped different horrors centuries before. Brianna's bare feet hit cold stone steps, dress tearing on the antique banister as she fled. The irony wasn't lost on her running through routes once used by enslaved people seeking freedom, now her own path away from a different kind of bondage. Spanish moss brushed her face as she burst through a side door into gardens. Behind her, voices shouted, footsteps pounded. She didn't look back. Her nursing training mapped the venue layout from memory, the wedding tour Marcus had given her 3 weeks ago, pointing out historical details while she'd imagined their future. Now those same details became survival markers. Gardens led to parking lot. Parking lot meant cars. Cars meant escape. Music and laughter drifted from the reception hall, guests dancing, celebrating, completely oblivious to the nightmare unfolding behind plantation walls. Brianna wanted to scream, to warn them, to shatter the illusion. Instead, she ran. Gravel cut her feet. She stumbled, caught herself, kept moving. The wedding dress that had taken 6 fittings to perfect now caught on bushes, tore on fences, dragged through dirt. Beauty turned burden. Dream turned trap. She spotted her maid of honor's car. Jennifer had left keys with her earlier in case anyone needed them. Brianna's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the purse, almost couldn't fish out the key fob. Car headlights created harsh shadows as she clicked the unlock button. The door opened. She threw herself inside, slammed it shut, hit the lock. Silence. Just her ragged breathing and the distant sound of celebration. For one moment, she sat frozen wedding dress bunched around her, makeup destroyed, feet bleeding, life completely shattered. Then she grabbed her phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Brianna's voice came out broken, disbelieving, but clear. I just found out my husband is planning to murder me. I'm still wearing my wedding dress, and I need help right now. The operator's voice shifted to professional urgency. Ma'am, where are you? She gave the address, hands trembling against the steering wheel. Through the windshield, she watched guests milling in the garden, probably wondering where the bride had gone. They'd find out soon enough. Everyone would. Her life split into before and after. Before the bed, after the truth. Officers are on their way. Stay on the line with me. Are you safe where you are? I'm locked in a car. Brianna watched the plantation house entrance. Any second, Marcus or Devon might appear. I'm safe for now. The bravest thing you can do is save yourself when no one else will. Have you ever had to be your own hero? Tell me about it below. Police arrived within 8 minutes, but the arrests that followed would only be the beginning. Because 3 days later, Patricia Whitmore showed up at Brianna's door with a truth that would change everything she thought she knew. They arrested him in his tuxedo, still wearing the boutonniere she'd pinned on his lapel 6 hours earlier. Proof that monsters don't always look the part. Blue and red lights washed over white plantation columns, transforming the elegant venue into something from a crime show. Brianna sat in the back of a patrol car, wrapped in a police-issued blanket that smelled like disinfectant and other people's emergencies. Through the window, she watched officers lead Marcus out in handcuffs. His confident mask finally cracked. The charm that had fooled her for 12 months dissolved under fluorescent police flashlights. He looked smaller somehow, his shoulders hunched, his expensive tuxedo wrinkled from the confrontation. Devon stumbled beside him, completely falling apart, tears streaming down his face as photographers captured every angle. "Ma'am, can you confirm the identity of these individuals?" The detective leaned down to her window, voice gentle but professional. "That's my husband." The word tasted wrong now. Marcus Whitmore. "And that's Devon Shaw, his best man." Guests poured onto the lawn, champagne glasses still in hand, confusion replacing celebration. Women in formal gowns clustered together, whispering. Men pulled out phones, recording everything. Within minutes, social media exploded. Brianna's phone, still clutched in her shaking hands, lit up with notifications she couldn't bring herself to open. A second detective approached. "Notepad ready." "Mrs. Cole, can I call you that?" "Yes." She'd take back her maiden name soon enough. "Call me Brianna." "Brianna." Underfold. "Brianna. Brianna, I need your statement while everything's fresh. Can you walk me through what happened tonight?" She told him everything. The prank, the voices, the murder plan, Patricia's intervention, her escape down servant stairs. Every detail spilled out in a flood she couldn't control, words tumbling over each other as her hands gestured wildly. The detective wrote quickly, occasionally asking clarification questions, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "You did everything right, ma'am," he said when she finished. "Everything. Your instincts saved your life tonight." Flash photography created strobe effects across the scene. News vans already lined the street, someone had tipped them off. Or maybe they monitored police scanners for exactly this kind of story. A wedding reception turned crime scene. A fairy tale exposed as nightmare. The kind of headline that wrote itself. Inside the patrol car, validation mixed with humiliation. They believed her. That was everything. But now, the whole world would know how easily she'd been fooled. How desperately she'd wanted to believe in love across divides. How completely she'd missed the warning signs Patricia had tried to show her. Patricia herself stood near the entrance, still composed despite the chaos. Officers had questioned her separately, recording her testimony about what she'd overheard. She'd probably saved Brianna's life by bursting in when she did, buying those crucial seconds for escape. The woman who'd made every family dinner uncomfortable had become her unlikely defender. Marcus's eyes found Brianna's across the lawn. For 1 second, something flickered in his expression, panic, maybe regret, maybe just anger at being caught. Then officers pushed his head down, guiding him into a police vehicle. Charleston wedding turns crime scene. Someone read from their phone screen. "Oh my God, it's already trending." Brianna closed her eyes. Tomorrow, her face would be everywhere. Her story dissected by strangers. True crime podcasters already recording emergency episodes. Comment sections filled with support and victim blaming in equal measure. People questioning why she hadn't seen the signs, as if love didn't make everyone temporarily blind. "We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow for a full, formal statement," the detective said. "But for tonight, is there somewhere safe you can stay? Family? Friends?" "My maid of honor." Brianna's voice sounded hollow. "Jennifer. She lives across town. We'll have an officer drive you there." He paused, something human breaking through his professional mask. "I've been doing this job 20 years. I've seen a lot of close calls. You're smart, brave, and incredibly lucky. Don't let anyone tell you different. Society teaches women to be polite, to give second chances, to ignore their gut instincts. But Brianna's gut saved her life. When was the last time you listened to yours? For 3 days, Brianna hid in Jennifer's apartment, watching her wedding photos become evidence photos on the news. Then came the knock on the door she wasn't expecting. Patricia Whitmore, alone, with tears streaming down her face and words that would rewrite the entire story. The woman who treated her like an outsider stood in her doorway with a secret that explained everything and made the betrayal even darker than Brianna imagined. Patricia Whitmore looked diminished outside the context of wealth and status. Standing in Jennifer's modest apartment doorway, makeup-free with swollen eyes, she resembled any other mother facing the collapse of her world. "I know you don't want to see me," Patricia said, "but there are things you need to know. Things that explain." Her voice broke. "Things that make it all so much worse." Brianna almost closed the door. Almost. But something in Patricia's expression stopped her raw vulnerability that couldn't be faked. She stepped aside, letting the older woman enter. They sat across from each other at Jennifer's scratched coffee table. Sunlight filtered through cheap blinds, creating prison bar shadows across the worn carpet. Patricia's expensive handbag looked absurd in this setting, designer leather against secondhand furniture. "Marcus doesn't know the truth about his birth," Patricia began, hands trembling as she spoke. "No one does, except me and my late husband, and now you." Brianna waited, stomach nodding. 28 years ago, my husband had an affair with his secretary, a black woman from Colombia named Angela. Patricia's voice cracked on the name. She got pregnant. He begged me to stay, promised it meant nothing, offered to pay her off quietly. But Angela refused the money. She wanted to keep her baby. The apartment felt smaller suddenly, walls pressing in. Brianna's mind raced ahead, connecting pieces that didn't want to fit together. She died in childbirth. Complications. No other family to claim the baby. Patricia pulled tissues from her purse, dabbing eyes that couldn't stop leaking. "My husband brought Marcus home 3 days later, told me we'd raise him as ours, tell everyone I'd given birth at a private facility out of state, make it all disappear, for the family name, for our marriage, for everything we'd built." Brianna's rage built hot and sharp. "You took that woman's baby and erased her?" "I know how it sounds. I know what we did was." Patricia's hands twisted the tissue. "But I also loved that baby. From the moment I held him, I raised him. I was his mother in every way except biology. Does Marcus know?" "No." The word fell like a stone. "We never told him. My husband died believing the secret was safe. And Marcus grew up thinking he was something he wasn't: white, privileged, completely disconnected from half his identity." Horror washed over Brianna in waves. Marcus's internalized racism suddenly made terrible sense. His careful distance from anything too urban. His comments about elevating himself above his supposed background. His choice of her, a black woman he could control, possess, then discard like his grandfather had tried to do with Angela. "When you two fell in love, I saw my husband's betrayal all over again," Patricia continued. "You reminded me of the woman who nearly destroyed my marriage. I was cruel to you because I couldn't separate past from present. I punished you for her existence." "That's not fair." Brianna's voice shook. "None of this is fair." "I know." Patricia looked directly at her for the first time. His grandfather's trust fund was meant to keep him humble, to make him prove he could commit to something real. Instead, it turned him into a monster. And I helped create that monster by hiding the truth of who he was. Tissues piled up between them, two women drowning in the consequences of lies that preceded both of them. Brianna felt something shift inside, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. The kind that made everything more complicated instead of simpler. "His birth mother deserved better," Brianna said quietly. "Angela deserved to be more than a scandal you buried." "Yes." Patricia's voice broke completely. "She did." They sat in silence. Grief and rage and confusion filling the space between them. Generational damage laid bare. Trauma, creating more trauma in endless cycles. Marcus was both victim and perpetrator, shaped by lies, destroying others with his own deceptions. Can you forgive someone who hurt you once they explain why? Is understanding the same as absolution? This is complicated. Tell me what you think in the comments. As Patricia left, she turned with one final statement. I'm testifying against him. And I'm going to make this right not just for you, but for his birth mother, who deserves to be remembered as more than a scandal. Brianna had no idea what making it right would mean, but it would change more lives than just her own. The courtroom became a stage where 3 generations of secrets, lies, and internalized hatred finally faced public judgment, and the whole nation watched. News crews camped outside Charleston County Courthouse for weeks. The case had everything: race, class, murder, betrayal, hidden identity. Think pieces multiplied across the internet. Podcasters dissected every angle. Social media divided into camps, arguing about whose victimhood counted more, whose trauma explained what. Brianna walked into court each day in simple navy suits, stripped of the bridal fantasy that had nearly killed her. She'd lost 15 pounds since the wedding night, her face sharper and harder than the woman who'd hidden beneath that bed. Cameras caught her every expression. Artists sketched her profile. The nation watched her transform from naive victim into something else entirely, a survivor who refused to hide. Patricia took the stand on day 3, wearing pearls and dignity like armor. Under oath, she revealed everything: Marcus's birth, Angela's death, the decades of lies. The courtroom erupted. Reporters sprinted outside to file breaking stories. Marcus's face went pale, then red, then completely blank as his entire identity shattered in real time. Your Honor. Patricia's voice stayed steady despite tears. My son never knew he was biracial. He never knew his birth mother sacrificed her life, bringing him into this world. He grew up believing a lie that I helped create, and that lie poisoned everything he became. The defense attorney tried damage control, arguing that hidden identity explained Marcus's psychological state, made him less culpable. But Patricia wouldn't let that narrative stand. Marcus is responsible for his own choices, she said firmly. Understanding where his hatred came from doesn't excuse what he planned to do. Angela didn't die so her son could become a murderer. Devon testified next, his plea deal requiring full cooperation. He described Marcus's obsession with accessing the trust fund, the careful planning, the insurance research. Every detail matched Brianna's account. Every word tightened the net. Then came Brianna's turn. She walked to the witness stand, feeling hundreds of eyes tracking her movement. Marcus stared at the table, unable to meet her gaze. His expensive lawyers had already tried character assassination in pretrial motions, questioning her motives, suggesting she'd known about the trust fund all along, painting her as a gold digger. None of it stuck. Miss Cole, the prosecutor began gently, can you describe your relationship with the defendant before your wedding day? Brianna took a breath. I thought I was in love with a good man. I thought we were building something real. I was wrong about everything except the danger I was in. She walked them through the entire night, the prank, the conversation, the escape. Her voice never wavered. When the defense tried to shake her testimony, suggesting she'd misheard or misunderstood, she shut it down fast. I'm a pediatric nurse, she said coldly. I'm trained to stay calm during emergencies, to process information accurately under pressure, to trust my instincts about danger. I heard every word clearly. I understood exactly what it meant. And I saved my own life, because I refused to doubt what I knew was true. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge banged his gavel. Brianna didn't flinch. The prosecution played her 911 call. Her voice filled the room, terrified but clear, still wearing her wedding dress, begging for help. Several jurors wiped their eyes. Marcus finally looked up, his expression unreadable. Forensic accountants detailed the insurance policies Marcus had taken out 3 weeks before the wedding. $2 million paid to him as sole beneficiary. Phone records showed calls between Marcus and Devon in the months leading up, discussing the plan and the timeline. Financial trails exposed gambling debts Marcus had hidden from everyone. Desperation driving his calculations. Character witnesses painted Marcus as charming but cruel friends who'd drifted away after too many casual cruelties, ex-girlfriends who'd felt manipulated, business partners who'd learned not to trust his word. A pattern emerged of someone who viewed people as tools, obstacles, or resources to exploit. An expert testified about the psychological impact of hidden racial identity, internalized racism, and family secrets. The testimony was damning, not excusing Marcus's actions, but explaining how toxic family dynamics had shaped a man capable of planning his wife's murder for money. Justice in a courtroom can't heal all wounds. What do you think true justice looks like for Brianna? For Marcus's birth mother? For everyone damaged by these secrets? When the jury returned with guilty verdicts, conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, Marcus finally looked at Brianna. And for 1 second, she saw something she'd never seen before. Not the charming suitor, not the cold conspirator, but a broken man who'd destroyed himself, trying to become someone he was never allowed to be. The gavel came down on 15 years, but the sentence couldn't measure the life Brianna had lost or the one she was about to build from the ruins. The sentencing hearing brought everyone back to court one final time. Marcus stood in prison orange, the expensive tuxedo long gone, his confident bearing replaced with hollow-eyed exhaustion. Devon received 8 years for his cooperation. Marcus got 15. Brianna stood to give her victim impact statement, her voice carrying through the packed courtroom. "You stole 6 months of my life pretending to love me. You stole my ability to trust easily. You stole my belief that love conquers all." She paused, looking directly at him. "But you didn't steal my future. You didn't steal my strength. And you didn't steal my capacity to keep loving, keep fighting, keep living. That's what you'll think about for the next 15 years you failed to destroy me." Marcus's shoulders shook. He didn't speak. The judge led him away. Media circus exploded outside, reporters shouting questions, supporters holding signs, protesters arguing about racial justice and who deserved sympathy. Brianna pushed through it all, climbed into Jennifer's car, and went home to her North Charleston apartment. The silence hit first. Empty rooms, echoing with absence. No husband, no wedding gifts, cluttering surfaces. She'd donated everything weeks ago. No photographs on walls. Just her nursing scrubs hanging in the closet, symbol of the real life she'd almost abandoned for fantasy. Annulment papers sat on the kitchen counter, already signed. She was Brianna Cole again, legally and emotionally. Mrs. Whitmore had never really existed anyway, just a character in Marcus's murder plot. She stood at her window, watching Charleston city lights flicker against darkness. 6 months ago, she'd looked at these same lights and dreamed of bigger things. Better things. Love that elevated her beyond this modest apartment and student loan debt. Now these lights felt like coming home, like survival, like freedom. Her phone buzzed text from her hospital supervisor. "Your job's waiting whenever you're ready. We miss you." Another buzz. "Jennifer, dinner? Just you and me and bad movies?" Another flowers delivered with a note from Patricia. "For your strength, for your grace, for teaching me that redemption requires action." Brianna looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back had sharper eyes, harder edges, visible scars, but also something else, power she'd earned through surviving. Knowledge that she could face the worst and keep standing. She thought about Angela, Marcus's birth mother, who died bringing him into the world. About Patricia, who'd loved a child while erasing his history. About Marcus, who'd destroyed himself and nearly taken her down, too. About the complicated mess of trauma, identity, and choice that had brought them all to this moment. "I survived," she said out loud, voice steady in the empty apartment. "That's not nothing. Healing doesn't happen in courtrooms or with guilty verdicts. It happens in quiet moments when you choose yourself again." What helped you heal from betrayal? Share your wisdom below. Someone needs to hear it. 2 weeks later, Patricia called with a proposal that would transform Brianna's nightmare into something that could help others. It wasn't about money or guilt, it was about legacy. And it would require both women to face uncomfortable truths together. From the ashes of betrayal, Two women built something that would honor the forgotten, heal the wounded, and prove that redemption sometimes requires uncomfortable alliances. Patricia's voice on the phone carried unusual hesitation. "I have a proposal. I'd like to meet in person, if you're willing." Brianna almost refused. Almost. But curiosity won over caution. They met at a coffee shop in downtown Charleston, neutral territory, where neither woman held advantage. Patricia arrived carrying a folder thick with documents, her expression both determined and uncertain. "I want to create a foundation," Patricia began, sliding papers across the table. "Scholarships for Black nurses, support programs for domestic violence survivors, legal advocacy for women escaping dangerous relationships, all of it named after Angela Marcus's birth mother, the woman I helped erase." Brianna stared at the documents. Detailed plans, funding proposals, mission statements. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment guilt offering. Patricia had been working on this for weeks. "Why?" Brianna asked bluntly. "Because I can't undo what I did to you, or what my silence did to Angela's memory, or what my lies did to Marcus." Patricia's hands shook slightly. "But I can make sure other women don't have to sacrifice everything just to survive. I can make sure Angela's name means something beyond scandal." "You want me involved?" "I need you involved. This can't be a rich white woman's guilt project. It has to be real. It has to actually help people. And for that, I need someone who understands what it means to fight for survival, while everyone questions whether you're worth saving." Brianna leaned back, studying Patricia's face for manipulation or performance. She found only exhaustion and genuine determination, the look of someone trying to build something meaningful from wreckage. "I don't forgive you for how you treated me," Brianna said carefully. "And working together doesn't erase that history." "I know. But I also know that holding on to anger forever just poisons me. And if we can actually help people really help them, then maybe some good comes from all this horror." They negotiated boundaries over coffee that turned cold. Patricia would provide funding and connections. Brianna would manage programs and community outreach. They'd have board oversight to prevent either woman from dominating decisions. Everything transparent, everything accountable. The press conference 3 weeks later brought mixed reactions. Some praised the unlikely alliance. Others questioned whether Patricia was buying forgiveness. Black community members debated whether accepting Whitmore money perpetuated harmful dynamics. Survivors' advocates worried about optics overshadowing substance. Brianna addressed concerns directly. "This foundation isn't about forgiving anyone. It's about making sure the next Black nurse who marries into wealth has resources if things go wrong. It's about making sure domestic violence survivors can escape without losing everything. It's about honoring Angela's memory by helping women she'll never meet. If that makes you uncomfortable, examine why." The first scholarship went to a single mother from Columbia studying nursing at Medical University of South Carolina, Angela's hometown, Angela's field. When the woman accepted her award, tears streaming down her face, talking about how financial stress had nearly forced her to quit school, Brianna felt something shift. Purpose, emerging from pain. Foundation office space took shape in North Charleston. Modern, warm, purposeful. Walls filled with photos of scholarship recipients. Survivors who'd escaped. Families helped through crisis. Brianna and Patricia worked side by side, navigating uncomfortable conversations about race, class, and generational trauma. "I'm learning that good intentions mean nothing without action," Patricia admitted one afternoon, reviewing grant applications. "I thought loving Marcus was enough. I thought my discomfort with you was just natural hesitation. I was wrong about so much." "You're still learning," Brianna replied. "That's more than most people do." 6 months after launch, the foundation had helped 43 women escape dangerous situations, funded 12 nursing scholarships, and provided legal advocacy for domestic violence cases across South Carolina. Medical debt relief programs expanded, resources multiplied, lives changed. Marcus's grandfather's estate, ironically designated for family legacy projects, became their largest funding source. The old man who'd created trust fund conditions that drove his grandson to murder now funded the foundation, helping his grandson's intended victim heal others. Brianna's mother visited the office, pride mixing with protective concern. "You sure about this, baby? Working with that woman every day? I'm sure I'm doing something that matters, Brianna answered. I'm sure I'm not letting what happened to me be the end of my story. Beyond that, I'm figuring it out as I go. Can something good grow from something terrible? Can perpetrators' families help heal victims? This foundation says yes, but what do you think? Is redemption possible for everyone involved? 6 months after the foundation launched, Brianna received a letter from prison. Marcus wanted to meet. Patricia advised against it. Her therapist said the choice was hers. But there were things Brianna needed to say, not for him, but for herself. Facing the man who'd planned your murder requires courage, but Brianna wasn't there to give him closure. She was there to take back her narrative. The decision took 3 weeks. Patricia advised against it. Jennifer thought it was unnecessary trauma. Brianna's therapist said the choice belonged entirely to her, no right answer, just what she needed for her own healing. Marcus's letter had been simple. I need to apologize in person. Please. Brianna read it once, put it in a drawer, and went back to work. But the words stayed with her, circling her thoughts during foundation meetings and late-night planning sessions. Not because she wanted to hear his apology, she didn't need it, didn't crave it, but because something in her needed to look him in the eye one more time, needed to stand in front of him as the woman who'd survived, not the terrified bride who'd hidden under a bed. The correctional facility sat an hour outside Charleston, concrete and chain-link fence cutting harsh lines against blue sky. Security procedures stripped away dignity, metal detectors, pat-downs, questions asked by guards who'd seen too much to care about anyone's story. Brianna moved through it all with her shoulders back, head high, remembering this was temporary discomfort. Marcus lived here. She was just visiting. The visitation room smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Rows of glass partitions separated visitors from inmates. Phone receivers connecting voices while keeping bodies safely apart. Brianna sat in the plastic chair, hands steady on the counter, and waited. When they brought Marcus out, she barely recognized him. Prison had stripped away everything that made him Marcus Whitmore, the expensive clothes, the confident posture, the charm that fooled everyone, including her. The man shuffling toward the glass looked hollow, smaller somehow, his face carrying the weight of consequences he'd never expected to face. He sat down slowly, picked up the phone receiver with shaking hands. Brianna picked up hers, said nothing, made him speak first. Thank you for coming. His voice cracked. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Marcus stared at his hands, at the glass, anywhere but directly at her. I'm sorry, he finally said. I know that's not enough. I know words can't. He stopped, swallowed hard. I was desperate. The pressure from the family, from the trust fund requirements, and then finding out about my birth mother, about my identity. It broke something in me. I wasn't thinking clearly. Brianna leaned forward slightly, voice cold and clear. You knew about your heritage for 5 minutes before the trial. You planned my murder for months. Those things aren't connected, that's just the excuse you're using. Marcus flinched, like she'd slapped him. You want me to understand? Brianna continued. You want me to connect your identity crisis to your decision to kill me for money? But here's the truth. You were planning my death long before Patricia told that courtroom about Angela. You're just using that revelation now, because it sounds better than admitting you valued $2 million more than my life. That's not fair. Fair? Brianna's laugh was sharp. You married me as a business transaction. You whispered love while planning my funeral. You stood in front of God and everyone we knew and lied with every word. Don't talk to me about fair. Marcus's face crumpled. Real tears this time, not the practiced kind. I destroyed everything. My life, your life, my mother's health. I know I'm a monster. I know I deserve to be here. Yes, you do. The bluntness seemed to shock him. He'd probably expected some softness, some forgiveness, wrapped in therapeutic language about healing and moving forward. Brianna gave him nothing except truth. I didn't come here for you, she said, each word deliberate. I came here to look at you and know that you have no power over me anymore. You tried to take my life, but you only stole 6 months. I'm taking back The rest. 17 by Vries 7. That, I'm sorry, isn't enough, is it? Marcus's voice came out small, childlike. No. And it never will be. A guard announced, 5 minutes. Marcus leaned closer to the glass, desperate now. What can I do? How can I make this right? Brianna stood up, preparing to leave. You can't. That's not your job anymore. My healing doesn't depend on your redemption. Your regret doesn't erase what you did. And I don't need your permission to move on. She hung up the phone while he was still trying to speak, words she'd never hear tumbling from his mouth to empty air. She walked toward the exit without looking back, past other visitors clinging to connections with people locked inside. The guard buzzed her through security doors. Sunlight hit her face. Fresh air filled her lungs. The weight she'd carried, the question of whether facing him would break her open again, dissolved. She felt lighter. Not happy yet, not completely, but free. You don't owe your abuser forgiveness. You don't owe them understanding. You only owe yourself healing. And sometimes that means walking away without ever looking back. Have you ever chosen yourself over someone else's comfort? Tell me about it. As Brianna drove away from the prison, her phone buzzed with a text from someone unexpected. Coffee? I think we should talk about what comes next. Patricia? They'd never be friends, and they'd never erase the past. But these two women were building something bigger than their pain, and that required honesty only they could give each other. The coffee shop sat in Charleston's historic district, tourists passing by windows that had witnessed centuries of complicated Southern history. Brianna arrived first, claiming a corner table away from foot traffic. When Patricia walked in 10 minutes later, she looked tired, in a way makeup couldn't hide. They ordered coffee, neither would drink, the ritual giving them something to do with their hands, while difficult words formed. I have early-stage cancer, Patricia said, without preamble. Treatable, good prognosis, but it's making me think about legacy, about what I want the foundation to become when I can't lead it anymore. Brianna's stomach dropped despite herself. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not dying tomorrow. Patricia pulled out medical files, setting them on the table between cups of cooling coffee. But I am facing my own limitations. And I need to know the foundation will continue doing real work, not become some guilt monument to my failures. What are you asking? I want you to take over as executive director, full authority over programs, hiring, expansion plans. I'll remain on the board in an advisory role, but this needs to be your vision moving forward. Brianna sat back, processing. She'd been managing day-to-day operations for months, but official leadership meant something different. It meant stepping fully into public identity as the face of this work. It meant permanent connection to the Whitmore name, even as she'd fought to reclaim her own. Why me? Brianna asked, though she suspected the answer. Because these women don't need someone who understands charity. They need someone who understands survival. Patricia's hands trembled slightly around her coffee cup. I can write checks. I can open doors. But I can't look a woman in the eye who's escaping violence and truly know what that takes. You can. This isn't your redemption story, Brianna said carefully. Working together doesn't absolve what happened. I know. And I need to be clear. I'm doing this for them, for Angela's memory, for every nurse who needs help, not to make you feel better about your guilt. I understand. Patricia met her eyes directly. And that's exactly why you're the right person. This work matters more than our comfort. It always has. They negotiated details over the next hour, contracts, transition timelines, board restructuring, everything documented, everything clear. No assumptions about friendship or forgiveness. Just shared commitment to mission over personal feelings. I'll do it. Brianna finally agreed. But we're clear on something. This isn't your redemption story. This is those women's success story. You and I are just tools in their hands. Agreed, Patricia said. And that's exactly why you're the right person. They shook hands across the table, sealing an agreement built on respect rather than affection. As they gathered papers, a young woman approached their table hesitantly. Excuse me? Are you Brianna Cole? Brianna looked up. The woman seemed familiar, though she couldn't place from where. I'm sorry to interrupt, the woman continued, tears already forming. But I was your first scholarship recipient. I graduated last month. I'm working in pediatric oncology now because of what you made possible. The woman's Sarah. Brianna suddenly remembered her name, pulled out her hospital ID badge proudly. I just wanted to say thank you. To both of you. This foundation changed my entire life. Brianna stood, hugging Sarah tightly, while Patricia watched with quiet tears. This moment, this real, tangible evidence of impact, mattered more than any difficult history between them. The work was bigger than their pain. It always had been. Working with someone who hurt you is different from forgiving them. Sometimes the work matters more than comfort. Have you ever collaborated with someone difficult for something important? How did you navigate it? As they finished their coffee and prepared to leave, Patricia mentioned something casually. Oh, and you should know, Marcus's birth mother's family reached out. They want to meet you. Brianna's cup froze halfway to her lips. The family Marcus never knew existed, wanted to meet the woman he'd tried to kill, and what they had to say would complete a story decades in the making. The drive to Columbia took an hour and a half, giving Brianna too much time to overthink everything. What do you say to the family of a woman who died giving birth to the man who tried to murder you? How do you bridge that impossible gap of pain, loss, and complicated connection? Angela's sister lived in a modest neighborhood, houses maintained with pride despite economic struggle visible in every carefully tended detail. Children played basketball in driveways. Neighbors called greetings from porches. This was the world Marcus had been born into and immediately stolen from a community he'd never known existed while he grew up in plantation houses and yacht clubs. Brianna knocked on the door, heart-hammering. A woman in her 50s opened it, and Brianna gasped. She had Marcus's eyes, his smile. The family resemblance was immediate and undeniable. You must be Brianna. I'm Lorraine, Angela's younger sister. The woman pulled her into a hug before Brianna could respond. Thank you for coming. Thank you for everything you're doing in my sister's name. Inside, the small house overflowed with family, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces. Soul food covered every surface of the dining table. Photos lined the walls, and there, among graduation pictures and family gatherings, was a young woman with Marcus's face softened by warmth and joy. Angela. She was going to be a nurse, Lorraine said, following Brianna's gaze. Just like you. She'd finished her first year of community college when she got pregnant. Maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe that's the universe completing something she started. Brianna touched the photo gently. Angela looked so young, so full of dreams. She died at 21, bringing Marcus into the world without ever knowing he'd grow up denying everything she represented. They sat around the dining table, and the stories poured out. Angela, who'd sung in church choir. Angela, who'd helped neighbors with medical questions. Angela, who'd saved every penny for nursing school. Angela, who'd fallen in love with the wrong man, her employer, and paid the ultimate price. She was happy about the baby, Lorraine said quietly, even knowing he wouldn't leave his wife, even knowing she'd do it alone. She wanted that child so badly. What happened? Brianna asked. During the birth? Complications. She hemorrhaged. Small hospital. Not enough resources. Delays in treatment. Lorraine's voice hardened. She died because she was poor and black and didn't have access to the care she needed. If she'd been at a better hospital, with better insurance, better everything, she'd probably still be here. The foundation suddenly felt heavier, more purposeful. Angela had died from the exact systemic failures they were fighting. The scholarships, the medical debt relief, the advocacy work, all of it addressed the inequities that killed her. What do you think of Marcus? A younger cousin asked suddenly. Do you hate him? The room fell silent. Brianna considered her answer carefully. I hate what he did. I hate the person he became. But knowing your family, knowing his mother's story, I mostly just feel sad for all the brokenness. He never knew where he came from. Never knew this love existed. He destroyed himself trying to be something he wasn't, and nearly took me down with him. Lorraine nodded slowly. We've talked about reaching out to him, about telling him about his mama, but we're not sure that's our responsibility. He's got his own healing to do. He does, Brianna agreed. And whether that includes you all is your choice, not his, right? Before she left, the family insisted on giving her a photo of Angela, young, beautiful, smiling at a church picnic. For the foundation office, Lorraine said, so people know she was real, she was loved, she mattered beyond what happened to her. Brianna hugged each person goodbye, feeling unexpected connections forming. This family could have hated her, blamed her for their nephew's imprisonment, resented her presence in their lives. Instead, they'd opened their arms and their hearts, choosing grace over bitterness. Sometimes the people you need to meet are the ones history tried to erase. Have you ever discovered family history that changed how you understood everything? Share your story below. As Brianna drove back to Charleston, her phone rang. Patricia, voice shaking. Turn on the news. Marcus is claiming he wants to make a statement, a public apology. And he specifically mentioned you by name. The man who'd lied about everything wanted one more audience, but this time, Brianna would control the narrative, not him. The call came through on a Thursday afternoon while Brianna was reviewing scholarship applications. Patricia's voice carried panic Brianna hadn't heard since the wedding night. Every major news outlet is covering it. He requested a prison interview. They're saying he wants to make amends, to apologize publicly to you. It's scheduled to air Sunday night. Brianna closed her laptop slowly. Did anyone ask me if I wanted to be part of his public therapy session? That's exactly what I said. Patricia's anger matched her own. His lawyer is framing it as accountability, but it's just another manipulation. He wants sympathy. He wants to control how people see him. For 24 hours, Brianna's phone exploded. Reporters requesting comment. Well-meaning friends asking if she'd watch. Strangers on social media debating whether she should forgive him, as if her healing required his performance. Jennifer came over that night with wine and fury. You don't owe him anything. Not your attention, not your forgiveness, nothing. I know. Brianna stared at her phone, watching notifications multiply. But thousands of people will watch whatever he says. They'll hear his version of events. And I won't be there to correct the record. Her therapist helped her see the choice clearly. She could ignore Marcus's statement entirely, or she could release her own, not as response to him as her own narrative told on her own terms. Brianna chose the latter. She spent Friday writing, revising, practicing. The foundation's small media team helped her record a statement in the office, surrounded by photos of scholarship recipients and survivors, visual reminder of what actually mattered. No fancy production, no dramatic music. Just Brianna, looking directly at the camera, speaking truth. Sunday night arrived. Marcus's interview aired on national television, him in prison uniform, sitting across from a sympathetic journalist who asked softball questions designed to elicit tears and redemption narratives. Brianna didn't watch. She didn't need to. But her team summarized. Marcus acknowledged his crime, explained his identity crisis, offered generic apologies, requested understanding, and centered his own rehabilitation journey. Self-focused from beginning to end. 30 minutes after his interview ended, Brianna's statement went live across all foundation platforms. She looked directly into the camera, voice steady and clear. Marcus Whitmore took 6 months of my life. He tried to take all of it. But I'm not here to talk about him. I'm here to talk about the thousands of women who survive men who see them as obstacles, as opportunities, as anything except human beings. Apologies are words. Accountability is action. Change is systemic. And I'm interested in the last two, not the first one. If you're watching this because you survived someone who tried to destroy you, I see you. Your survival matters, your healing matters, and your story doesn't end with their violence. It begins after it. This foundation exists because I refuse to let the worst thing that happened to me be the only thing that defined me. We've helped over 500 women so far, 500 nurses getting education, 500 families escaping violence, 500 futures that looked impossible until someone said, "We believe you, and here's help." That's accountability. Not speeches from prison, not televised apologies. Action, resources, change. Marcus Whitmore is irrelevant to my healing. He always was. This work, these women, that's what matters now. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Her statement went viral, 10 million views in 24 hours. Comments poured in from survivors sharing their own stories. Donations to the foundation surged. Media coverage shifted from Marcus's redemption narrative to systemic issues around domestic violence and survivor support. A federal judge who'd presided over domestic violence cases for 30 years released a statement praising Brianna's response. This is what accountability looks like. Not words, but transformed lives. Patricia issued her own brief statement supporting Brianna's approach, carefully avoiding any defense of her son. By Monday morning, Marcus's interview had been largely forgotten, buried under the more compelling narrative of survival and advocacy. He'd wanted attention. He'd gotten it. But Brianna had turned that attention toward something that actually mattered. Accountability isn't a speech. It's a lifetime of changed behavior. Do you think apologies matter if they don't come with action? What does real accountability look like to you? The statement went viral, 10 million views in 24 hours, but the most important viewer wasn't online. In a small hospital room in North Charleston, Brianna's mother watched her daughter and whispered to the nurse, "That's my baby. She didn't just survive. She's teaching others how to thrive." 3 years after she hid under a bed in a wedding dress, Brianna stood before a room full of survivors and realized something powerful. Her story wasn't about the man who tried to destroy her. It was about the woman she became because she refused to let him. The Charleston Convention Center had been transformed for the Foundation's 3rd annual gala. Crystal chandeliers, not unlike those from the plantation venue, where everything had fallen apart, now cast light on a very different kind of gathering. The walls displayed hundreds of photos, scholarship recipients in scrubs, survivors rebuilding lives, families thriving against odds that should have crushed them. Brianna stood backstage in a sophisticated navy gown, deliberately, not white, deliberately reclaiming elegance on her own terms. 3 years of work had changed her in visible ways. Her face carried confidence, earned through surviving the unsurvivable. Her shoulders held the weight of leadership she'd never planned to carry. Her eyes reflected purpose she'd discovered in the wreckage of her worst nightmare. The ballroom held over 500 people, donors, medical professionals, survivors, advocates, journalists. Patricia sat in the 3rd row, her health declining, but determined to witness this moment. Marcus's maternal family occupied a table near the front, Lorraine holding Angela's photo. Jennifer sat with Brianna's mother, both women beaming with pride. And beside Brianna's mother sat someone new, Daniel, a trauma counselor she'd met at a conference 8 months ago. Not a replacement for what she'd lost, but something different entirely. Something built on honesty, mutual respect, and the kind of love that didn't require her to diminish herself. They'd taken it slow, building friendship before romance, establishing trust through consistency rather than grand gestures. He understood her work. He respected her boundaries. He loved her strength instead of trying to fix her brokenness. Sarah, the first scholarship recipient, now a practicing pediatric oncology nurse, took the stage to introduce Brianna. 3 years ago, I was ready to quit nursing school, Sarah said, voice shaking with emotion. Single mother, drowning in debt, no way forward. Then this foundation gave me a scholarship that changed everything. I graduated with honors. I got my dream job. I'm raising my daughter with security. I never thought possible. And it's because one woman turned her worst nightmare into our greatest hope. Please welcome Executive Director, Brianna Cole. The standing ovation started before Brianna reached the microphone. She let it wash over her, not as validation, but as evidence. Evidence that pain could transform into purpose. Evidence that survival could expand into advocacy. Evidence that one woman's refusal to stay broken could create pathways for hundreds more. Thank you, she said when the applause finally quieted. 3 years ago, I didn't plan to be here. I didn't plan to become an advocate. I planned to be a wife. But sometimes our greatest purpose finds us in our darkest moments. She told the wedding night story, the version she controlled now, reclaimed on her terms. The audience listened in absolute silence as she walked them through hiding under the bed, hearing the murder plan, Patricia's intervention, her escape, I ran down servant stairs in a plantation house, Brianna said. A modern woman fleeing a modern nightmare through paths built for those who escaped different horrors centuries before. And I realized something profound in that moment: the fight for dignity, for freedom, for the right to exist safely. That fight never ends. It just changes form. She presented the statistics. 547 nursing scholarships awarded, 2,312 survivors assisted through crisis, $18 million in medical debt relief, partnerships with 42 medical schools across the Southeast, legal advocacy that changed state policies around domestic violence support. These aren't just numbers, Brianna said. These are lives, futures, families who thought hope was impossible until someone said, "We see you, we believe you, here's help." She called Angela's sister Lorraine to the stage, presenting an award for community impact. The two women embraced as the audience rose again, witnessing the complicated beauty of healing across generational trauma. Angela died because the system failed her, Brianna said, arm around Lorraine's shoulders. She died because she was poor and black and didn't have access to the care she deserved. This foundation is our promise that her death meant something, that her son's terrible choices don't get to define her legacy, that her dream of becoming a nurse lives on through every scholarship we award. Patricia received recognition, too complicated acknowledgement of someone who'd caused harm and then worked tirelessly to repair it. The applause was respectful rather than enthusiastic, appropriate for the nuanced reality of their partnership. Video testimonials played survivors speaking directly to the camera about escape, recovery, rebuilding. One woman described calling the foundation hotline from a gas station bathroom, leaving with resources that saved her life. Another talked about finishing nursing school at 43 because the scholarship made it possible. A third brought her children on camera, introducing them to the organization that helped their mother get free. Brianna took the microphone again for her closing remarks. 3 years ago, I learned that some people see others as transactions, but I also learned that some people see others as treasures. This foundation exists because enough people chose to see value in dignity, in healing, in justice, and we're just getting started. She paused, looking directly at the cameras, streaming this event live. If you're watching this and you're trapped, whether in violence, in fear, in a relationship that's destroying you, please hear me. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not overreacting. And there is help available. Your survival matters. Your future matters. And someday, when you're ready, your story might help someone else find the courage to escape, to heal, to thrive. The audience rose in final standing ovation. Brianna stood in the light, surrounded by evidence of transformation, feeling something she hadn't felt in years, complete peace with who she'd become. After the gala, in a quiet moment, before heading to the after-party, Patricia approached. "You took the worst thing that happened to you and made it matter," Patricia said quietly. "That takes strength I'll never fully understand." "We both did," Brianna replied. "Imperfectly, but we did." They didn't hug, didn't pretend to be closer than they were, just shared a moment of mutual respect built on years of difficult work. Someone asked about Marcus, still in prison, participating in therapy programs. His story, now a case study in criminal justice courses about identity, privilege, and violence. "I hope he finds peace with who he is," Brianna said, "but that's not my concern anymore." She meant it. Marcus Whitmore had no power over her future. He'd taken 6 months. She'd taken back everything else. That night, as she drove home with Daniel, Brianna thought about the journey. From hiding under a bed in terror, to standing on a stage in triumph. From victim to survivor, to advocate. From broken to rebuilding to whole. "You okay?" Daniel asked, squeezing her hand gently. "Better than okay," Brianna said. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." If you've survived something that was supposed to destroy you, tell me in the comments. Your story matters. Your survival matters. And sometimes sharing it helps someone else find the courage to escape, to heal, to thrive. Subscribe for more stories that prove resilience is real, that survival is possible, that broken things can be rebuilt into something even stronger. Share this with someone who needs to know that betrayal doesn't get the final word they do. What would you do if someone saw your worth before you believed in it yourself? Would you run? Would you fight? Would you build? Let me know below. Brianna Cole walked into that honeymoon suite as a bride. She ran out as a survivor. And she stands here today as proof that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the thing that shows you exactly who you're meant to become.